over 100 tracksuits painted. I'm taking a breath of fresh air.
I did steal intake as a Sorla, Nicholas's spreadsheet.
This is now a Wolf in Exile spreadsheet.
Becoming Jonathan Frakes here for a second. We made it up. It's a fabrication.
You're using configuration, bravo. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
The
man.
Black 3.0 Marauder cannot be piloted by Anish Kapoor.
Welcome to the Odysseus Legion Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Odysseus Legion Podcast. I'm your regular host, Nicholas, and joining me today are our two usual suspects, Garner.
Hello.
And Luke.
Hello.
Along with us today is a returning special guest, Zess.
Greetings.
Today we are deep diving into tournaments. We recently held the Iliad Invitational mini tournament where we invited top place winners of various Iliad League seasons to compete. We talk a bit about that event, and then we're going to move on to tournaments as a concept and format, including some major event plans in the future. But before we get into that, what have you guys been up to, BattleTech or otherwise?
Oh boy. I mean, I've had a bunch of Christmas stuff. I was at the Invitational. I just yesterday painted a behemoth in my favorite kind of IRL military scheme, which is RAF Desert Pink, which is the best khaki in the world.
It is a very good khaki.
It's an amazing khaki. And I'm also prepping for a not a BattleTech tournament, but a sword fighting tournament that is happening next month.
That sounds fun. What kind of style of sword fighting is it?
I do SCA regulation heavy rapier. I recently got a new dagger, and I've been learning to fight with that.
Nice.
I've had a lot going on, obviously, with work and things like that, but I have managed to play in 2 seasons of Iliad and the Invitational at this point, which was pretty great. So this time I feel like I will have a much more robust basis of a foundation to stand upon while discussing Iliad than the 2 games I had last time I was on the show, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it was only 2 games, so I hadn't played like all the objectives and stuff like that. Obviously, holidays, and just got signed up for Adepticon, so looking forward to going for that. I'm signed up for 4 tournaments for Adepticon, so that should be a good deal of fun.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You do what you do.
And so I finally got around to painting more of my Smoke Jaguar force, my Minutemen, and got them up to, I think, 16 mechs. So I've got a Trinary, and now I have to bring it up to a Trinary and a Nova because I have to have even amounts of things. I can't do it partially because I have problems. I still have to apply. I've got both Minuteman decals and Smoke Jaguar decals, so I'm going to be playing around with that for the first time since I was like 10 trying to put decals on my little plastic model F-18. So wish me luck on water slides.
Water slides are way less intimidating than they first appear, so I wish you luck with that.
I've used them a couple of times, and I find, applying them with the right brush and making sure you cut them down to a manageable and correct size beforehand really helps.
Definitely. And then also having, Microsol and Microset?
Yeah, I got Microsol Microset. I got the varnish, the gloss varnish and matte varnish, so I can make it so that way the edges don't
peel,
show through either. Like it'll smooth it all out. Anyways, that's what I've been doing, is just trying to get all my Smoke Jaguars up to the same level as my 2 companies of finished Davian Guards.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually finish that. But I'm having a lot more fun goofing around with the Smoke Jaguars, because after 100 tracksuits painted, I'm kind of over 100 tracksuits painted. I'm taking a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, there's a reason why I jump around with my paint schemes, and also I don't do big armies the way I would for 40k. Being able to mess around with paint schemes is fun.
I wanted a little change of pace. I still enjoy painting it. It's just that I now wanted to fart around with something else.
Oh yeah.
For just a little bit.
100 vertical stripes is a lot.
It's 100.
Yeah.
Well, the worst part is that I'm using not the camo specs version, but there's another site that does camo specs, so I'm using the Delta company one from there, which is still a stripe, and it's still 2 stripes per. It's just 1 vertical and 1 horizontal.
Oh, this is the unit color compendium version.
Yeah, unit color compendium version, exactly. I couldn't remember what the site was, but yeah, this is unit color compendium.
All right, and as for me and what I've been up to, I've moved, I've got a dog back, and I've been streaming Monday Night Mega Mech again. Other than, I also ran the Invitational and played a little bit of games in here. But the most interesting thing is, back to streaming Monday Night Mega Mech, I've had a lot of people actually come back. More people have been joining me than the last time I streamed, and the views have been going up, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, but they're there for cheddar.
People are now there for Cheddar. My official co-host is my dog Cheddar. And I guess the other major thing is what we're going to be talking about now, which is the Iliad Invitational. The Iliad Invitational is where I invited all of the placers from 2025 various Iliad League seasons. Anybody who was 1st through 3rd place was invited. Placing in the initial round was based off of your total overall placement. So for each 1st place finish you got 3 points, 2nd place 2 points, 3rd place 1 point. So that at least the first round of seeding was based off of that. I felt it went overall a lot better than the first sort of mini tournament I tried running, which was the birthday battle. Obviously, nothing goes perfect as an organizer, as a judge. I think people seem to have fun, and it went pretty smoothly overall. Yeah, what did you guys think of the Invitational?
I think it went pretty well.
I liked it. I thought it went quite well. I think that it was a lot nicer having because I think the first one it wasn't set missions. People still rolled missions, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I just think that was a big plus.
I dropped the ball big time on the first one, but I think everyone cut me a lot of slack considering my life and the birthday aspect of it.
Yeah, that was very much a messing around tournament day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was meant to be kind of a low-key tournament as well, though, right? Whereas the Invitational is meant to be a capstone, so they're different weights, more or less, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I had fun. I got to run 200-ton mechs in a King of the Hill match. It was enjoyable.
God, that Iron Cheetah.
So good.
And Direwolf E. You thief.
I wouldn't have used that but the one I wanted to use the Direwolf A, but I couldn't because it put me at 7,001.
Yep.
1 BV over.
Just push up the piloting skill, it's fine.
That's a great advice. Definitely something you should do with your Direwolf is make it fall over on a coin flip.
That sounds like probably the best thing that could have possibly happened, honestly.
I have a lot to say about piloting and falling over on coin flips when we get to games played. I will say, for a goodbye to the 2025 rules, seeing goodbyes to VTOLs was nice. The number of people, a couple of people who were previously against the banning of VTOLs before, during, and after the tournament, I definitely heard some people say it's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I was against it at first, but yeah.
I mean, I brought 1 VTOL just because I needed something to go around with my 100-tonners. So it was a light AC2 Nightshade ECM VTOL, but it doesn't have an ECM.
I was about to mention that myself if you weren't going to.
You're about to mention my VTOL, or?
And not having ECM, that it's a Nightshade ECM VTOL that has no ECM, so therefore, what is it?
Yep. It is literally just a light AC2.
It's less an ECM and more a KCM in that case, I think.
All it was around to just, objective stuff if I needed to have both 100-tonners out at the same time.
Yeah. Do donuts and wait for someone to get rid of it.
If they wanted to, yeah. It's actually surprisingly well armored.
I mean, that's never really what takes down a VTOL, but yeah.
That's the only way I kill VTOLs.
It occurs to me I should probably mention the structure of the tournament for people listening.
Yeah.
So for the Iliad Invitational, it was 3 rounds, 2.5 hours each, with a 15-minute setup period for players to look at their opponent's list, select maps, and basically get up right until the point of deployment, or get right up to the point of the first turn. Some people started ahead of time, which they shouldn't have, but it's a tournament. Even listening to people talk about playing in Southern Assault and various other things, it goes back to my reflection of what the judging aspect of a lot of these things, which is your job as a judge is to preserve the rights of not necessarily the two opponents that are playing, but their future opponent. And if both players kind of agree to accept whatever mistake they made and just agree on who the winner was, that still kind of, for the most part, preserves the right of the next person. So I wasn't going to walk over when I heard someone like say, "Oh, whoops, we shouldn't have started already." Like, "Oh no, you guys stop that." Like,
I mean, starting setup and everything early is not real. None of the tournaments that I've been to penalize you for starting early.
yeah.
I've never been to seen that happen in a real event.
And I think that makes a lot of sense, because like it comes to a certain thing of like, unless one player calls over the judge and says something, like, it is so far beneath any kind of concern. It doesn't damage the next player either of you would face in any way. So it's like, no, there's no point in enforcing that.
The only circumstance I can see it becoming an issue is if you decide for whatever reason that clock weaponization is something you actually want to like seriously allow in your game and encourage
Clock
people.
weaponization is stupid.
And like seriously allow people to do, but also we weren't playing on chess clocks.
No. I did make sure, because this was something that came up during the birthday battle, of there were some people taking too long to play, and so I tried to make the announcement ahead of time that the expectation, while we're not playing with a chess clock, the expectation and standard for slow play is everyone should move as if they were under a chess clock with 5 minutes during the move phase.
Yes.
And as a standard, when people try to keep that in mind, that's what has really sped up my play. Luke, we've actually played where I've gotten the thing out and done the chess clock, because we call it Nick Brain locally, because I was definitely bad at this at a certain point. I've gotten better. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Still called Nick Brain for a reason. But I feel making that statement early on, there wasn't too much slow play. There were a couple of tables. I did try to have people have a die out that told me what round they were on, so I could keep an eye on and make sure people were roughly in parity on terms of turns.
Yeah. And I know I called at least you, Zess, and my round one opponent on, just like, come on, you gotta move something.
Yeah, my bad.
I mean, listen, sometimes if you're, it's those little micro moves where it's like, I know I need to do something and I need to be very precise here. Or in Isaac's case, it's a lot of getting kind of overwhelmed running a VTOL and then getting scared of a flak unit.
Yeah,
there's no reason to be afraid.
There's times just to take the flak. I mean, right? Like,
oh, when we get into games played, I'm gonna harp on that a little bit. But that VTOL ended up not doing anything for most of our game.
Oh wait, because he brought a Gossamer, right? Yeah,
he brought
won't get into it right now, but...
Yeah.
Once games started, everyone was playing the same scenario. It was, what was it? Supply Raid, King of the Hill, Demolition.
Yep.
Yeah. And Zess got first place.
Oops.
People had a great time. It was hosted by Cantrip Cars and Games. They were gracious enough to open up an hour early, give us basically run of the place. And there wasn't an entry free. Basically, we used up whatever store credit I earned for running events and planning things, and just they matched that and added to that, and we had a nice prize pool that people didn't realize there was going to be. So we got a nice surprise of people being, wait, oh, there's surprises? Yep.
Yeah,
So
prizes, there were raffles during the games. Yeah, Cantrip is a great store. If you are in the central New York area and you want Magic cards or you want BattleTech stuff, they do good work. They're good people.
the BattleTech selection there is a little light right now. There's issues for everybody ordering product. They do take special orders. So if you don't see something you want on the shelf, you can always ask, and they can order stuff for you, and it'll get there in like a week or two.
Yes.
As long as distributors have.
The two things that were raffled by Dice Roll, right? I was so engrossed in the game, I'm not even sure what was given away, because that was
Me neither.
the third game, and my back was to you, so...
Gothic salvage boxes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Gardner also won Magic cards.
Yeah.
I did win Magic cards.
That's hilarious.
Yet another Marauder that I am never going to actually put on the field because of that. But I do get to paint it as the Black Marauder because it's a Gothic
I was going to say,
Marauder.
it's Black Marauder time.
Yeah. I already have that. That's what my Marauder 2C is painted as.
But now you can have Marauder 1.
Yes. True.
You can have the older brother. Wait. Black Marauder's older brother, the Black 3.0 Marauder, cannot be piloted by Anish Kapoor.
Yeah, those hyper black paints, I'm not a fan of them just because it's like I'm very much on the train of like you never ever really want to be painting with pure black or pure white because it makes your model look like shit.
Yeah, because you see everything.
Yes. Because there's no way to add shadows and there's no way to highlight.
Exactly. The trick to painting both of them is grays, either dark grays or light grays.
Exactly. I've been... If Murph listens to this, I've been trying to get him to use grays for so long, but he loves pure black.
A lot of people do, and that's just something I try to, like, I promise this is going to work. No, it doesn't. I'm like, I promise you.
Right? Build it up in dry brush. Works every time.
I have some of the black... It's either Black 2.0 or Black 3.0 paint that is... It is a fine art paint. It is not for painting miniatures.
No.
It's awful. Like, when I first got back into BattleTech, I had some of it, and it was supposedly functional as a primer, and it adhered, and it was the only thing I had. And I was like, oh, this will be cool for certain effects and deep shadows. And like, it's too matte that it scuffs constantly. It's just bad. It does kind of adhere, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's also just gonna make the coverage of any light colored paint you put over it so bad.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyway, this has been the grayscale corner in which we rant about black and white paint.
So we've been talking about painting. I think that means we're probably done with the Invitational. Any last comments?
It went well overall. I think in the case of something like this, we didn't really get one of the kill objectives, and I think that might be a thing to consider for future is instead of randomly rolling the tournament rounds, planning out like a set tournament where it's we want one of this mission, and then one of this mission.
Well, surprise, I didn't roll.
Oh, you didn't roll. You just picked your favorites.
I didn't pick my favorites.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, King of the Hill is a kill mission. Like, I specifically chose 3 missions to represent sort of a variety. I wanted a mission that rewarded sort of map control and map play and fast moving units.
Fair enough.
A lot of people's favorite one, it was supply raid, so it's like, let's start with that. The plan from there was kill mission followed by a sort of like a balanced mission. So the second one for the kill mission, I chose King of the Hill because in a tournament setting, I think King of the Hill offers a bit more strategy and interaction as a format over VIP Clash.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's more tactical. So I chose King of the Hill for that reason. And I knew going in that the last one was going to be Demolition because it is I think a nice balanced scenario in terms of it has a good risk reward in terms of you want to have combat and engage, but you have to mix and balance your forces so you can maneuver around the battlefield. And so we have your map control maneuverability, your kill, and your balanced scenarios. So that's I did specifically choose those.
Okay.
I do appreciate that you did not make King of the Hill or a kill scenario the final game, because I do like having the interplay between opponents of trying to go after a more detailed objective kind of subset. So like doing like supply raid or demolition or something like that, I think is a good third game. I like the tournament a lot. I did think you randomly determined the objectives, so because you said you were rolling them, so I was lied to, but it's okay.
I don't think I actually said I was rolling them. I just didn't tell people I wasn't when they asked what I rolled.
Well, so somebody asked and you said I will roll them and then omit the result from the next rolls so that we couldn't get copies.
Oh, so what does that say if there was repeats? It's like, oh, no repeats.
Yeah, becoming Jonathan Frakes here for a second. We made it up. It's a fabrication.
Obviously, though, if you are choosing them, like you have to make sure that participants don't necessarily know which ones are going to be the subsets, so they can't necessarily build to the exact subset, right? That's where the randomization kind of comes into play.
Yep. That's why I wanted people to think I was rolling them.
Yeah. Like, so for example, BTCC has like 6 different missions that they go, and they're usually selected round by round by the TO of which one's being run, and there's never any repeats.
Yeah, I've never seen one with repeats, but I've also never seen them not, like, this one's always going to be there. Like I said, Karnov Down is always, like, the first one of the second day in Alpha Strike, but things like that.
So this is a good time to move into just a more generic overall conversation about tournaments and planning. The epic formats, which is the Iliad and Odyssey, are designed for friendly local game store level casual competition. That is what was in mind when they're being created and thought about to a large extent, and for that, what we have, I'm very proud of what we've created. But when it comes to tournaments, there's a lot that can and needs to be simplified and improved. We believe that what we have is, if not the best, it's one of the best BattleTech competitive formats available, and we want to take it to the next level, which is out of game stores and into major events and conventions. Garner, you and I have talked a bit about some possible changes we could make for tournaments. Why don't we start with some of those conversations and move on into other tournaments, other changes, and in particular, Zest, some of your plans coming up.
So one of the things that I was looking at doing was trying to simplify, like, the beginning of game stuff. You shouldn't really need 15 minutes to, like, prep before you can even start playing the game. Like, that just seems a little nutso in terms of, like, just trying to figure out what you're doing. It adds a whole layer of complexity that I think doesn't need to exist. So one of the biggest things that I was talking about possibly doing for that would be a preset terrain, like, get rid of the map phase, get rid of the tokens, just go straight to getting to it. You get rid of a bunch of those, beginning of game rolls, and so that's one of the biggest things that I was looking at. And then secondly, one of the things I would also like to see is, again, just for ease of getting people in, because the Iliad was originally kind of based on the Odyssey, which was based on the WolfNet 350 rules, and I think that the sideboarding thing for tournament play just adds layers that prevent people from playing. Like, they're kind of scared of sideboards. I've seen enough events, especially for, like, BattleTech, have, like, you have an attacker force and a defender force and you don't know which one, but, like, if you have to actively pick and choose, you're continuously remaking your force on the fly, which that's where it gets a little more convoluted.
So yeah, I mean, that's where I know we talked a little bit about some of my plans coming up about trimming some things out of the packet, right, for like, personal use for a tournament. But I guess this is a good time to kind of interject this part in. with Adepticon coming up, I knew that there's a Hextech tournament that's being held up at Adepticon where they were looking for how they wanted to run it. And I recommended, because the guy running it is essentially one of the main guys that is sponsoring me to be sponsored by Hextech, was looking at how he wanted to run it, and I'd recommended to him using Iliad after the first season that I played. Actually, I think I only had 4 games at that point, but I'd recommended, hey, look at Iliad. And I sent him the packet, and he basically opened it, saw like it's like 110 pages or whatever, and he's like, I can't do a 110-page packet, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
that's the joke that I made afterwards. Like, you're like, yeah, I can't do a 110-page packet. And I said, you're right, but we can do a 400-page rule book, and no one bats an eye.
It's very much the I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you though.
But I mean, you have to think about it, right? The rule book you've opened countless times, right? Like you're already past that to be a player in the game, especially if you're looking at tournament stuff, right? You're already consuming all of that. So opening up a packet that is rulebook length or rulebook light length in order to play an event is a bit of overkill.
Yeah, but
now,
when I spread out all the other stuff, it ended up going down to 25.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it can be cut. And I'm gonna stick my nose in here and say part of the issue as well, I think, is they talk about this a little bit when in the playtest missions packet. Like Total Warfare, Battle Mech Manual, they tell you sort of like how to play the game, but not how to play a match a lot of the times. Like they have some suggestions, there's some things that players do that are just sort of like uniform to a certain extent, like movement dice. It's suggested and touched lightly in the books, but things like, yes, you roll, but declaring your rolls. Things like, making sure there's some things that, like, yes, can be cut out of a packet, but there's enough meta sort of aspects to the game that aren't included in those rule books that experienced players, I think, in a tournament might not necessarily know, but there's a lot of new players that telling them why TMM dice are important, that, okay, I can't tell you how many times it irks me. I might mention this in a game's played, but players will, they don't declare that, like, they roll a die to hit for one gun, and they set that die aside, like, oh, it hit, I set it aside, let me roll the rest of my guns. It's like, no, you roll the weapon, then you roll the damage, then you roll the weapon, then you do it, like, or at least tell me exactly what you're doing. Don't assume I know what you're doing. And there's so many things like that in BattleTech that makes my rules packet grow. And like I said, the Iliad rules packet, the rules and games right now are very much, I know they're kind of lengthy, but it's so many times I get questions from newer players about things like this. And it's like, it's in the packet. It's already there. It's to help some of these new organizers. And I wish some of this was... Actually, I don't wish some of this resolved by CGL, because I'm not sure I would like how they do it, but...
That's where, bolt-on stuff, which, I mean, Iliad is essentially a bolt-on, right, to the core's rules. It's nice if you have things under your own control, because then you can... mutate those things as you want. So like, if you do give that control over to Catalyst, then Catalyst does it. Now you have to unwrite their rule to write your own, right?
Yeah. And that gets messy.
Yeah, I get it. I always assume I'm the only person who has read the whole thing.
I think one of two. I think Zess has made an effort to run through it with a fine-tooth comb to see if you've missed anything.
Not as much as I would like to. I have not read it front to back, partly because of its length.
I ignore like the pages about like player conduct and maps and all the pages of like, these are the maps and this is what they look like when they're splayed out. I'm like, I feel like one is rather common, like it's just effectively don't be a jerk for player conduct, and maps are, I can also just pull out the maps and look at them.
Yeah. But yeah, I think as is kind of an overwhelmingly large packet at this point, but also I think there is a lot of it that we could easily edit out. Like, you can basically get rid of, just like off rip, you can kind of, for the purposes of a tournament, you could probably get rid of everything after the mission descriptions, scenario descriptions, and most players wouldn't see that much of a difference. So that's 20 pages gone right there. You can reduce all of the maps to a simple diagram instead of a full-size page. That gets rid of another bunch of pages. And then there's a lot of stuff that you can cut down, a lot of stuff you can put in an external FAQ. You can split it into kind of a list building requirement packet and a scenario packet. And I think that there's a lot of stuff we can do to kind of abbreviate what we have without significantly reducing the amount of information that we are giving over to people.
The goal, once the 2026 rules are pretty much just about finalized, I want to go through, cross the T's, dot the I's, and
finish this discussion, honestly, because this discussion's gonna probably affect some things for 26.
And the goal there is, once it's finalized, to split it out so that the full rules are kind of still in effect. But when somebody is opening up the rules packet to look up, okay, we're playing this scenario, what is this? They don't need to flip through 5 bajillion pages. They don't need to skip through. If there's just a simple packet that says, hey, here's a link to the full rules, but here's the rules that you're trying to access right now.
Yes.
In terms of streamlining play, that is my major sort of design goal as we approach the start of Season 1, 2026. And I feel like sending out that to people to review, hey, here's the mission packet and here's the mission/force building packet, which is most of what you're going to need for a tournament.
Yeah.
We'd started along the topic of kind of what points of the packet you can pull out in order to streamline tournament play, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I think we touched on really quickly the other night when Garner asked me. And it sounds like you guys are already thinking the same as well. But there's a number of the cool things about Iliad that you can trim out, because for bigger events where people are not used to playing the format, they can be pitfalls, more or less, like token phase. All the specifics of it are pretty easy to not fully understand if you haven't gone through it a few times properly, right? So a new exposure player to some of these effects is more susceptible to falling into a mistake or missing a phase or something, right? Because there's a lot. Iliad does throw a lot at you right off the bat.
Yeah,
and
a lot of
I
people
don't get me
still
wrong.
miss the token phase.
Oh yeah, and
Right.
I'll throw it in here. So those early game phases are meant to sort of add a level of play, assuming that you're in a location that's not going to that you're not going to have an organizer around to make the terrain, make the map or make the 3D terrain choices for you.
Yeah.
So that if it's up to the players, how do you structure it in a fair and competitive way? Is a completely different conversation than you're at a tournament and an organizer set the table for you.
Yes.
And so completely eliminating map selection, token phase, all of that right from the start at a tournament, easy right? If you have 32 players and the organizer has preset all of them, even if it's maps, right? Even if each table is pre-selected maps and you're just randomly assigned, you get maybe the start is just which deployment zone do you get? Which do you pick versus not pick? That's pretty darn simple, and you get onto the game. That doesn't take 15 minutes. You've got 5 minutes to review and pick. And obviously that also changes because I do agree eliminating the sideboard aspect, because I think an important part of that is the aspect a bit of the casual play. You're not dedicated, maybe you're not experienced enough to plan an take all comers list. I do like the idea that's been mentioned of 2 7,000 lists, attack, defend, instead of 1 10,500 list that you then divvy up. And in a tournament, even switching to 8,000 instead of 7,000, having one single list, those all make sense. In a tournament, I think there's advantages in a league format and other situations for the sideboard. And it's this interesting argument of what's better for new players, what's better for experienced players, that can be, argued in inverse, but in terms of just, I think the advantage you get in local play is greater for those things, and there's not too much of an advantage in a tournament. I think at a certain point, if you're more skilled, it becomes decision paralysis, and even worse, to make these sort of sideboard game decisions on the fly. And the other thing is you're also under tighter time constraints, right? Like the Invitational was 2.5 hours instead of the 3 that's normally supposed to be allowed. So by making choices more like simpler, right, you can reduce the time and still have a deep play.
The biggest reason to get rid of the sideboarding element if you're going into larger tournaments is there is a lot of trust that is required for that setup to work effectively, or else like players need to basically be checking their opponent's math against them and making sure that they're not screwing something up, because I can see it very, very easily someone bringing slightly more than 7,000 points out of their deployment into a fight, like even on accident, and now you run into a situation of what are you going to do about that? Because like if it's caught early, then perfect, like you can just issue them a warning and you can tell them just go back to deploy. Like if you're like halfway through deployment, refigure your list, what you brought is not valid. But like if you get most of the way through the game before anyone catches it, like what do you do at that point? I feel like that if you're in a serious tournament, it needs to be a game loss, or some sort of penalty.
So,
and
even if it's caught after like deployment, I mean, so now you're turning back the clock on the game, but not turning back the clock on the actual time they have. So now you've costed the opponent more.
Sorry. And then you're also, you have more information because you know what your opponent was going to bring against you. Like there's a whole bunch of things where it just gets.
And that's also just assuming that they're doing it in good faith. It's so easy, unless you have everyone watching each other like hawks. You can bring more than 7,000 points if you have the kind of audacity and guile to do so.
Very easily.
That becomes a serious concern when you've got like 32 players instead of 8.
That is a very important thing to bring up and keep in mind, like a comparison between the two that I think might explain some of the difference in feel, which is the kind of the local play, the game store play, the league play. There is a much more significant social play aspect of you're probably going to see these people again. You might see them next week, right? Like the league is every month. People are playing constantly. You're playing the same people on a regular basis. Tournaments, even if they are repeated, not everyone makes it to every tournament. Like this is like a once a year thing. And so the social contract element of it, this is like, because we haven't had too much of a problem with a lot of people of bringing really sweaty, nasty lists, because there is that that social element of like, nobody's going to want to play you if you do that. People are going to enjoy you. You're not going to make friends. But that social element isn't necessarily the same for a tournament.
I think that kind of hits the nail on the head, Nicholas, where Iliad was originally kind of conceived by us as basically a play framework to deal with the fact that BattleTech doesn't inherently have the things something like Warhammer does, where it's like, okay, what do you play? You play 2,000 points with this mission packet, which we both know. Like it's filling that gap because BattleTech hasn't had an effective one of those for just kind of organizing casual play. Whereas a tournament, this is not about organizing casual play. This is you are playing to win, and there are going to be people who are going to look at that and go, well, they aren't doing super strong list checks, so maybe I'll try and sneak into 7,002 and my opponent won't notice.
Right, like who would have caught that Garner's dream list of the Iron Cheetah A and Direwolf A is 7,001 points, right? Like nobody would have known.
I would have played into it.
Nobody
I would have been like, cool.
But that was a point I wanted to hit on as well for like the modifications I was thinking of, is that it's too easy, especially for new exposure players, to accidentally or intentionally bork that points when you're moving your sideboard in and out, right? Because you can't expect that everybody is going to have a spreadsheet, like I think most of us do, where we have 8 or 10 different configurations that we've pointed out, exactly what we can do and have every single configuration of our list that we can run, theoretically. and are able to select from those at the beginning of a match. Like, just people that are kind of moving stuff in and out, and it's very easy to miscalculate, and it's very difficult in BattleTech as well to calculate what your opponent's list is, because they'd have to tell you everything they brought. You'd have to go into MUL, put everything in, change the skills, and it's very, very slow, and now you're eating even more into that match time.
And then they bring C3, and then you just have to sit in a corner and cry.
Right, because who's going to crack the math on that? It's just, or semi-guided or whatever, right? That's why, I think that if you're doing a tournament with people who are experienced with the system, I think it's fine to do the normal sideboard. I love the normal sideboard. It's very interesting as a part of Iliad. I enjoy trying to predict what my opponent's going to bring, predict what my opponent thinks I'm going to bring, and what they might react to, and it becomes a fun mind game of, okay, I think that he knows that whatever, and then you come out to an interesting conclusion when you get surprised sometimes, and then have a cool match. But
yeah, well, then sometimes your opponent is just so set that you're going to do this one thing that you're just like, you know what, fine, I'm not going to think about anything else. I'm just going to do this thing because you are really scared of it, so I'm just going to do it and throw 200 tonners onto the hill.
Or you just be me and just be like, and I don't play, I rarely counter tech into my opponents. I'm just like, no thoughts, head empty. I already know what I want to bring for this particular mission type.
I generally know what I want to bring for each mission, and I tend to not tailor my list towards my opponent because it doesn't really help too often.
It occurs to me in the league format where we have everyone's list publicly available. You can see someone's list before you fight them, and having the sideboard element preserves a bit of mystery. So you're not coming in with full knowledge of someone's 7,000 deployment, which I think makes it important. That might be the important part of a sideboard for league play that is completely irrelevant in tournament play.
I don't know. Like, my first match against Zess gonna be like, I'm not sure which configuration you use. Oh, you used like the third most, the one I thought like was the third highest of you to use, not like the first highest to use against me. And I'm like, you calculated all my configurations? I didn't even calculate all my configurations, man. Like, Jesus.
Guilty.
So, like, I'm like, yeah, I have these kind of like ideas of what I want to do, but I didn't actually hardcore see if they worked. And you're like, you're using configuration, bravo. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, man.
We've had lots of conversations about the different like style of plays and about the players, in particular the higher players at skill in our group. And Zess, I will say that, like, there's no question, I think you have the most like list buildy skills of anybody. Like, you plan your stuff out more thoroughly than anyone else.
It's probably true.
The other thing is, I think you also sim other people's lists to see where your list's weakness is.
Oh yeah.
I want to see a season where you submit your list first.
So it's usually almost pretty much made. It's just the I'm just trying to like get down the skills. I think I pretty much sent my Word Lake one around before the season really opened, and nothing really changed in it.
Yeah. Like Mega Mech into Princess will work for some things, but it won't work for others. But like, I will absolutely play a co-op game against myself, against lists I've struggled with in the past, to see how that list plays into my own.
The issue with Princess is that, like, so you can send somebody's list, even if you can predict exactly what the match is going to be between, yourself and whatever. Princess isn't going to play to objectives because she doesn't understand them, right?
Yeah.
You can't put that into there.
It's
going to change the dynamic.
You can do it kind of by forcing it to prioritize hexes, but yeah, it's the way I will usually do it is I will open 2 instances of Mega Mech and I will play against myself.
That's what my brother told me to do.
Yeah.
I told him, hey, I want to play on like Tabletop Simulator or something against you. I want to practice some like game stuff. He's like, why don't you just play against yourself on your table or on Mega Mech? I'm like, because I know what I'm going to do.
Right, yeah.
I've played Mega Mech against some other people's lists, definitely with the understanding of not necessarily this is what they will do, but it definitely gives me a good feel sometimes of the performance of units and understanding I know the most memorable experience was playing against one of Forrest's lists and realizing that the double Gauss Night Star is a nightmare.
Oh yeah, that the Night Star that he likes is evil.
This is the 9J, right?
I think it's whatever the base one is. It's just really good. Like double Gauss in an ERPPC puts a lot of very hateful firepower downfield. And it's close-in weapons are not bad either.
Yep.
And on the size of the maps also, so like a long deployment. So I had Forest first round of the Invitational, so it was on Supply Raid. And so it was positioned between, I think, Objective 2 and 3, reading from, well, right to left, basically.
Yeah.
So it's kind of central on one of the boards, and it's able to, like, medium range most of the maps, right? And it's Gunnery 3 sitting a partial cover, so it's hitting most things on the field at 5 plus whatever TMM is, right? So it's tricky to approach because that's an ERPPC, 2 Gauss rifles, and if you get closer, it's medium pulse lasers. So it's very good.
I'm glad you got to play Forrest, and I'm really happy that Forrest showed up. He clearly hasn't played games in months, so he wasn't the same level of competitor that I've played him as, and he's very excited to continue playing and get back into it. So we've kind of all seemed to agree that in a tournament, the sideboard isn't necessary because an organizer is handling the responsibilities of terrain and creating a balanced sort of playing field. You don't need all the setup.
The sideboard is less unnecessary and more it creates a unacceptable amount of administrative overhead.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Like,
well, okay, so sideboard
It's impossible to enforce.
Sideboard for various lists of reasons not advised for tournaments. We agree.
I do think that there is a way that you can kind of simulate it. And if you allow players to submit like 3 configurations of their force, like 3 deployments out of their 10,000 points or whatever, and then have them all be pre-approved, and then they choose one of those in secret against their opponent chooses one of them, both players reveal, player 1 is playing list A, player 2 is playing list B, okay, now have your match. Right, it trims it down to being a very easy decision. It's which one of these 3 do I want? Which one of my opponent's lists are they going to use? You have them both be publicly available, or you could just even have them show the configuration. But I would show the list, that way you know your opponent. You can double check your opponent, make sure they're playing a legal list, right?
yeah.
See, I don't like that. That works fine when I'm playing my clan list, because that's kind of how I look at my clan lists. My inner sphere. I don't build them to break down into nice 3,500 chunks.
Me neither. None of my lists are built that way.
I actually break them down into, I'm bringing mechs that are about 1,000 BV, a couple mechs that are 1,500 BV, and a couple mechs that are 2,000 BV. And I mix and match to taste. Sometimes I'll bring all 3 2,000 BV mechs, and then a 1,000, and then there's not a way to break that into 2 3,500.
And you just kind of toolbox it. I mean, I think you could still probably come up with these are 3 configurations out of the toolbox, which I think will be the most commonly useful.
So part of the reason you might have varied lists just in general anyway is because the various scenarios will want you to bring different types of units. And so the question there is, in a tournament where you will have, hopefully, scenarios that certain ones that advantage movement and map control, certain ones that would advantage pure combat, certain ones that would advantage medium weight flexibility, where it's difficult to build one list that's a take all comers, right? So that's part of why you have the sideboard, is that you can adapt your force towards the scenario. That might also be why you have multiple lists, which is you'd have your map control list, your combat list, your whatever. And so let's take a step back and think in a tournament, right? First of all, I'm assuming we all agree you want a variety of scenarios that reward various styles of gameplay, right?
Yeah, definitely. If all the scenarios are the same, then you're just playing the same thing every time.
Yeah. So, and then do we want to either leave players in a situation where they are at best advantage where they take all comers single list, or maybe even expanding out BV to 8,000 or something, or utilize some kind of non-sideboard alternate system, right? Multiple lists, preset configurations of a 10,500 list, whatever the flexibility. So do we want to give them some flexibility with more BV or flexibility through different variations?
If I can interject real quick, I think you guys might have misunderstood what I said when I said having a configuration A, B, and C. They're not meant to be 3,500 point slices, but the entire force roster for deployment. So each one would be a 7,000 point force.
Yeah, and I understand, but what that would end up looking like is still going to be something similar where I'm locked into things where the reason why I play Inner Sphere is to be a Swiss Army knife. And I feel like locking myself into only being able to play like a couple things would really cripple the playstyle of somebody that's trying to adapt. Even if, because like I'll set it up so that way I'll have like 7 different kind of setups that I would use. Like if you look at the Nicholas's spreadsheet that he created, I have like a whole bunch of those like saved from each season, and I will have like 6 different setups to kind of pick what kind of stuff I want. Even like with my little C3 lance, like there were some where I was bringing half the C3 or just the partisan, or not even bringing the other parts of the C3 and not bringing the master, just because it.
The ability to play like a kind of a toolbox Swiss Army knife list is a really nice thing of the format, and I guess the problem here is that, again, for like a large tournament, the kind of admin overhead is just way too high.
Yeah,
so,
and that's what I'm saying, like at that point I would rather just see one list where you have to just build the take-all-comers on your own, as opposed to having separate configurations.
I think having at least a couple is fun, because that introduces a little bit of the mind game element to it.
Yep, I agree. I like having 2, 3 probably at most. And even with 3, I mean, I get what you're saying with having the toolbox and being able to configure a whole bunch of different ways. The spreadsheet, because I did steal and take as a Sorla Nicholas's spreadsheet.
It's not stealing if it's given away. It's not like Sorla. They're just like, here. It's literally like, here's a default, copy and paste, use it as you like, and you're like, stealing mine. It's like, yeah, okay.
I've changed the name of the spreadsheet.
This is now a Wolf in Exile spreadsheet, no longer a Jade Falcon spreadsheet.
I mean, my personal spreadsheet is Jade Falcon. It has the logo in it and everything.
Oh yeah, I swapped all the colors.
You did do it.
Yeah.
You showed me once.
I swapped all the colors. There's a BWC emblem on it now. I had like the faction emblems for whatever I'm playing. It's been changed a little bit.
This goes back to like Zess. We're talking about changing Iliad for tournaments, and I know you're going to be running something, and I'm happy that whatever happens, like if you take anything from Iliad, I'm going to be happy. You took my sheet and you could have changed everything around, but if you started with it, I'm happy. I'm happy that people have enjoyed something I created in any way.
Yes.
So just thank you, and
It's not broke, so...
That's also very much in the spirit of Iliad, because as we've mentioned before, Iliad was basically just us initially ripping off Wolfnet's shtick and bringing it to Classic. So this is in the grand tradition of stealing something and changing it a little to make it yours.
To bring the point back across, so I stole that. You have the little checkmark system, right, for being able to build each deployment. So I built that out to now have 8 deployments. So I was using 7 different likely configurations for the Iliad tournament. And then I also know where I can modify these in order to make more sub conversions if I need to, like dropping out a battle armor to add an artillery shot or something like that, right? So it really comes out to more like 14, but it's like the 7 that I'm actually likely to use. So I understand, Garner, you having the worry of like, you know, there's so many different ways I want to play a force. like knocking it down to only 2 or 3 is rough, but you can still determine like the 3 most likely ones you're going to use. And I usually know the ones I'm likely to use for a given season, but I have a whole bunch of weird ones that are edge case scenarios against like specific people, possibly if I come up against like an opponent that is going to do a specific style. Or, you know, if you can determine that off their list in a specific scenario, like having extra arty shots if you're worried about battle armor being set on the objective or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. That's different strokes.
Here's my thought I want to pitch thinking about it here. I like the idea of 2 7,000 lists that are pre-selected, and only 2, not 3, because as mentioning, there's kind of 3 main models of scenarios: speedy map control, pure like combat assault, and balance, right? You kind of have your, you know, objective taking with light mechs, you have your maybe bring some heavies and assaults, and you have your medium mech king of the battlefield type thing. And by having 3 possible configurations, you can plan 3 lists, and you can kind of like adjust for those. By only having 2, it means you're kind of putting players in a situation where it's hard to optimize for everything. You have players who might end up in a situation where they have 2 strong scenario types and 1 weak. And I think my instinct is that creates some more interesting gameplay, or it forces players to not go all in on a list being, you know, pure combat, one being pure this, pure that.
Yeah.
And that feels like a better setup to me than 3 lists.
So, my issue with different lists, having multiple lists, is just you're going back to there's a lot, like, I have to look at all these different mechs now, as opposed to or units, instead of just I'm looking at these specific 8 to 10. So there would have to be some type of shared pool thing, and then you're back at the same.
And I think the caveat that I think both of you guys missed was Zess was suggesting you have your 3 lists are built out of the same idea of here's your 10.5 point deployment in total, and then you just have 3 pre-approved combat drops that are built out of that 2.7K.
Yeah.
So you would have the same thing where it's just you know what the whole thing looks like. All of the lists are going to have parts commonality with each other. This is just keeping players honest by forcing their specific deployments to go through a judge before they're allowed to use them.
The last thing I have to say on this subject is just based on points values. If you're going to be limiting people toolboxes like that, I think we go up to 8K, so that way there's a little bit more wiggle room. I thought that 8K was perfectly fine at Southern Assault, and we did our games in an hour and a half or something.
It's still a different feel at 8K. I'm not necessarily... I don't have any hard opposition to it, but I know it's... When I played with 8K against you, Garner, it did feel very different to me, even just in list construction, where suddenly I can bring a lot bigger stuff. You know, my force just felt like so much more to me, particularly as a clan player.
It unlocks bigger mechs.
Yeah, it lets you play with basically a second good heavier assault. And I know at least at Southern Assault, the kind of the list construction and also the abundance of artillery kind of crowded out all of the light mechs and very heavily incentivized people bringing lists that were very top heavy and full of high skill pilots, because you guys were limited to 4 or 5 units
we were
total?
Limited to 6 units total.
Oh, I thought it was lower than that, but still, it's
Nope, 6.
With the artillery strikes just deleting light mechs, it was very much bring a bunch of heavy haymakers and then just throw them at each other.
I think it was worse than artillery. It was
airstrike.
Because at least if it was artillery, it would have to be planned ahead and the lights can respond to shots, but it's literally just select their hex and delete it. So, yeah, it's...
I only had that happen to me once. and I ran a Praise Seeker, so, and it only died to artillery once.
Right, but you're gonna have, it still has to make a roll to hit, but the thing is the roll is so low, it still, it throws more randomness into the match than skill application.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Oh no, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the artillery need to be able to, and that's because people are absolutely petrified of jump 7, and even though they limited it to 2 jump 7 instead of 1 jump 7,
that was a mistake.
like, we needed to build more into it because they also added a pulse limit, but gave you strikes, and I was really confused on what they were signaling in that.
Yeah, I listened to their episode about it, and they kind of agree at a certain point that they had so many things that were anti high TMM light mechs that they're like, they didn't need multiples of them. They
artificially created a submeta designed to promote one list archetype.
Yep, which I did not follow.
So where did you place though?
I'll have to.
You were like
look.
middle of the pack, I thought.
Yeah, I was higher middle. I think I was. I think I was 14 out of 50.
But then they had how many players in the top? Like all had like awesome 8 Qs or 9 Qs or whatever, right? Like.
Well, there's actually a lot of Sunders. There's the double snub Sunder.
Yeah, that thing is a house. Especially if you let it play on a relatively constrained map, that thing will just beat the brakes off of a lot of mechs.
You have to be careful not to artificially constrain players into one archetype by having construction rules that only promote, big efficient heavy, right?
I agree. Oh no, I totally agree with that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying I would like to see some more big mechs. Because I will say that was a lot of fun.
Just rolling around with 200 tonners.
So 7K is kind of a sweet spot where, especially in an objective-based format, and with 6 different types of objectives that are varied, you have to start worrying about making choices at 7K. 8K opens up just enough of a window where you can go lax in some of the choices because you can fill it in elsewhere and then go premium on even more stuff. And I'm saying this is somebody that I think I still hold the record for the most expensive mech deployed, right? In Iliad?
You do. Because that direwolf was what, 37?
It was more than half a deployment.
I think it was 38.
Mine was 3575 or 3575, I think.
Because it was a gunnery 3 piloting 4 direwolf E, right? So Jamie McGuire makes every penny back, but one headshot, nothing's gone. But that even off to the side, right now, let's say you want to unlock Big Mech. So the point for going from 7K to 8K is unlocking Big Mech. So yes, now you can go more premium. You can have heavies with gunnery 2 or whatever. But now you can add so much stuff padding alongside them to run the objectives and stuff like that. It becomes very comfortable to do so without the player having to make concessions on a lot of different angles.
True.
Yeah,
Except there's still unit count limits.
Sure, but that's irrelevant with 8 units being deployable.
Yes and no.
I agree with Zess, and I think back often to conversations about the Timberwolf, the Mad Cat, where you don't really see it played in Iliad.
We have not seen one.
It's a great unit. It is a fantastic unit at higher BVs, but because it's kind of a good generalist, it doesn't fill a specific need well enough. If you need movement, there's things that are faster. If you need guns, there's things with more guns. If you need a definitive control piece, a sniper, there are better things for similar BVs that accomplish individual roles better. So at 7,000, you bring a Timberwolf, you're kind of bring a generalist when you're often going to be better off with a specialist. At 8,000 BV, suddenly that opens up room where you can bring a Mad Cat and something else. And it really changes the feel. I think having the 7,000 as more restrictive. Like, if you went up to 8,000, I would almost say, take away Edge.
Yeah. Because at that point, you're getting to... I mean, at that point, if you bring a 3,000 point assault mech, like, an early headshot is still going to be incredibly tragic, but it's no longer as much of a, oh, that was my one big thing that you've taken off the board.
I didn't find that at Southern Assault. But, yeah.
I'm going to go back to my experience here a little bit. So, I have 3 BTCC titles to my name, right, from previous years. All of those, every single one of them, I brought a Direwolf E and a Timberwolf T. And those are all 7,000 point deployments. So, like, you can go 2 big set pieces, but you have to have, and those are also only 6 units deployed. So the rest of it was battle armor and skimmers. Which, I mean, the skimmers are doing a lot of heavy lifting in that list, which now are illegal in Iliad anyway, right? Because of the BV minimum. But so it's that's kind of a big part of enabling that. But now, if you go to 8K BV, you can replace those skimmers with Shamash, right, or something like that. Something that is legal, has heavier armament, and can actually take a hit, unlike the skimmers, and now are much more dangerous, and it will play very, very comfortably, right? So. Whereas if I wanted to do Direwolf E, Timberwolf T in the same configuration I did for BTCC at this point, I probably in the first season I played, I could have done it, but I traded it out, the Timberwolf out for a Mad Cat 3. But now I'm not sure I could have confidence in succeeding with it like I would otherwise, because I don't think I can pad it out enough to be able to address any scenario, any like different situations I might come across, whether it's enemy mech configurations or mission types. I mean, obviously, I could trade one of them out, but if the point of that is trying to put them on the table, right? So,
for the record, what Zess is referring to here is in the 2026 rules, we are employing a BV minimum, so that people can't pad out their lists with a bunch of, and this isn't just you, Zess, but people. We're starting to consider like infantry. There were the skimmers. There are some VTOLs and other things that were, under 100 BV that had a lot of movement that could claim objectives and interact with gameplay. They filled the role of the fast-moving unit without spending significant BV in combat operations, so that you could take that battle value, that effectiveness, and switch it over to heavier units. And we didn't think that was particularly engaging gameplay.
Yeah. Because it usually turned into 500 points of your list was winning you the game, and then 7,000 points of your opponent's list was getting tied up and trying to shoot 500 points while they were getting dogpiled by the other 6,500.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I mean, it works if you know how to run it, right? Which is not too difficult to figure out how to run that, but there's some thinking you have to do. It can be very effective because you're min-maxing the force, basically, right? You're minimizing the stuff that's just focused on objective. It doesn't need to kill things.
Oh yeah, it's not
the kill power.
It's the problem is less that the problem is less that it's a difficult sort of list to pilot. It's just once you see it in action a couple of times, it's actually fairly easy to understand how to pilot it because you are splitting your opponent's attention effectively. And then it is very, very easy to replicate. And there was the kind of concern was just this is going to become kind of a degenerate format if we allow this to continue, because it's just going to collapse into a bunch of people bringing their 500 points worth of objective doers and then basically passing shots at the other person's own 500 points of objective doers.
Yep.
I think the skimmer to Shamash is a good way of putting it. Of if you go to 8,000 BV, generally what seems to happen is people will take whatever the weakest point of their list is, and they will bulk it to the point where it's no longer weak. For the table size we're playing on,
8,000, but no combined arms.
That could be an interesting format, but I think there's too many people in Ithaca who love their combined arms that we would locally have a riot.
This is for tournament, not for league. And honestly, I think that combined arms, or maybe battle armor and mechs, are fine. There's just a lot of mistakes that just get made playing them on their own. That I don't think it would be.
Removing battle armor would be a critical mistake for sure.
Yeah.
because you pretty much invalidate clans at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're allowed to bring protos, they can maybe get by, but that's also super limited if you're limiting the BV value, because I think a third of the protos are now banned out of Iliad essentially because of the BV limitation. So like lights and some mediums cannot be taken even if you upgrade them to 2s. And even if then, you're now burning into your skill allotment to bring something up to the point cost.
Yeah, it takes out about a third. I'm not gonna try and sort it by standard because I'm using MechBay right now, and MechBay's standard rules is weird.
True.
But of total proto-mechs, it takes out 31 out of 86. So yeah, it's almost 40%.
We're getting into a little bit of local format and playstyle weeds here.
Yes, we are.
You think it's like, I don't know if how engaging this is for the audience. So maybe we can take a step back here and say like why we're thinking about this.
Yeah.
So I know for us, at like the direct members of the Legion here, what my goal is to make the entry into the casual Iliad seasons free, and try to do a bigger invitational that if you get first place in one of the seasons, you get free entry into our sort of tournament, our end of the year, last use of the old season rules, invitational tournament. And Zess, you're planning on running a big BattleTech tournament next year at some point, I believe.
Well, this year, because now we're in 2026, right? So
you're right. Oh my gosh, it is 2026.
Yes. We have passed the threshold. But yes, this year in September, the end of September, we will be running a BattleTech tournament alongside the Kings of War tournament that is held in Elmira, New York every year. It's been held for 21 years. I think this is the 22nd year. We've played BattleTech on the side, but it's always been after the tournament games, right? Because it's a GT, so people get their Friday. People usually play board games or practice their Kings of War lists, or there's more time that goes on there as well. So they'll get some of the practice games in sometimes, and everybody drinks and is merry and has a fun time. And then you wake up Saturday morning and come in, you play your 3 tournament matches, and then after that everybody goes to dinner, comes back, parties and plays, right? And then you come back Sunday, play 2 more games, and all the there's the award ceremony and raffles and all that kind of stuff. But so we've had BattleTech on the side. We ran Grinders the past 2 years, and there's been a fairly good amount of participation to that. But obviously, we're catering to the Kings of War players to come play with us for the most part. But there is some overlap. But Corey Reynolds has been pushing me. He's the TO for the past year to start running a BattleTech tournament alongside of it. And after my 2025 year being very successful, I mean, I went through and won. I was Solaris champion. I'm blood named, right? Like, I had a very, very good 2025. He's like, hey, you're more well known than you've ever been. He's like, iron's hot. Let's strike. Let's do one next year. So I have to agree with him. I think it's the best time to kind of leverage the contacts I have and to start the BattleTech tournament alongside the Kings of War tournament. So Crossroads 2026 is going to have a BattleTech GT. It's probably going to be 5 rounds. 3 on one day, 2 on the second day. And then we also plan to have some casual play events alongside it. And outside of the tournament times, we're going to have a trial of Bloodright for the McGuire blood name.
I'm going to throw out there, we should run a salvage.
Yes.
I actually forgot to mention that. I probably would do that alongside the side, yes. There would be definitely openings for it.
Yeah, like if you're allowing side events, you gotta have a salvage free for all. They're just too much fun.
And we can probably do it Friday pretty easily. I mean, every Friday and Saturday, you could probably fit one in pretty easy. The Saturday one might be difficult because of people in the Blood Right, but if you timed it after the first round of the Blood Right, so people dropping out of the Blood Right first round would have something to go into, then I think it works.
We can figure it out as it gets closer. But I know you're thinking about doing Iliad, a version of Iliad for that, and I know if you're running it and making the decisions, it will be your final call. And then I'm happy that you like the format enough to do something based on it.
So I mean, we've talked about this in private before, right? I mean, and I've said it on the last podcast too. Of Iliad is the best system I've seen. I mean, and I even said that I recommended it to people running a tournament at Adepticon, right? And instead they decided to go with instant action, which I was going to say it out here. I mean, I think it's a mistake because instant action by the creator is not designed for tournament play. There is absolutely no scoring stipulations within instant action. And so therefore, like everything is binary win-loss. And if you're having a tournament that's 3 rounds with more than 16 players, you now have a critical issue where you cannot determine a winner.
It has that going for it. The other thing is, unless I'm mistaken and they've changed it, instant action also has a lot of deeply asymmetrical missions where the players are using, like players will individually get special rules that will give them bonuses or penalties during the game.
Hidden units at startup, all kinds of things. It's extremely asymmetrical. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great packet for like pickup play or maybe like a local league or something like that. But for a major tournament, like Iliad is the best packet I've seen. I think second to that would be Championship Circuit. Mm-hmm. And then I guess Southern Assault, just because I don't really know too many others. But there's so many issues with Southern Assault. Don't get me wrong. There's so many issues with Championship Circuit as well, but
there's issues with Iliad.
So, well, yeah, everything has issues, but Iliad doesn't have the glaring ones that a lot of the others do. And you guys are very quick on patching them, right? I mean, since I've joined, there's been how many? Not necessarily just for me, but since I've joined, there's been a number of erratas, and then obviously you're planning on doing a major update to the rules for 2026. Mm-hmm. So you're doing continuous improvement with religiously doing continuous improvement, where other stuff kind of just seems to throw stuff at the wall and see where it sticks. I'm not saying it never does that, but it's more refined than just throwing it straight at the wall. You guys try and cook it first and then are like, okay, let's see if it fits, right? So I think it's a really good base point to work off of for using for Crossroads than trying to start from something fresh. And I'm probably just going to overlap my ideas onto that basis in order to make it into a more cut down packet that is palatable to a new player that's never experienced it before in a tournament setting, while still being engaging and having the also very refined mission types you guys have, because I'll probably be using just Iliad's mission straight up. I might try and write my own and throw it in there as well, but we'll see.
Because the mission design that we've come up with, admittedly a lot of it is again us cribbing off of Wolfnet, but we've done a lot of development, Garner and Nicholas especially, on some of those missions, and I don't know, they seem to be working pretty well for us.
They're great. I mean, they're engaging. There's a lot of different things to consider in most of them. Like I said, I think before, the only 2 I don't really care for too much is King of the Hill and VIP. That's partially my personal bias because I like high mobility units and needing to map control multiple points on the board and not just one, right? But all of them have their own quirks that are interesting, and I think there's a lot to work off with it.
Yes.
And VIP is, if I had to pick a scenario that's like the weakest one and first on the chopping block, is VIP, but also it's kind of hard to replace without something directly better that fills the same role, because it serves the killy fight to the death mission type, and you need something like that. And King of the Hill kind of serves the same role, but it not quite, because it rewards certain specific list building aspects in terms of heavy units. If it wasn't for King of the Hill, I would have my list almost just be entire like killy mediums. Like, King of the Hill shapes the way I play and build my lists. It made me start bringing assault mechs versus, VIP Clash, it's killy. You can have very killy mediums, you can very killy heavies, you can very killy assaults. So it doesn't necessarily force the exact same kind of list constraints that King of the Hill does. So
the other thing that King of the Hill does is it forces you to be at a certain point on the map, right? So
yeah.
VIP is the only mission type in Iliad that does not have map-based objective play, aside from when one of them dies.
Yeah, at least to start.
Yeah.
And therefore, like allows bunkering and other things like that. We won't get too deep into the issues potentially there, but it is the one mission out of 6 that does not require you to control space on the board.
Yeah. And if the moment something comes that serves that same kind of like killy combat role that is more engaging than VIP
is getting thrown in the trash.
Yeah, it's getting thrown out. Absolutely. I think we've made the fight to the death scenario the most engaging it can be without a more interesting thing, and I'm waiting for that inspiration or waiting for something to steal from
interest
to
you
use
in
it.
Karnov down?
But
Fuck no.
okay, I'm looking for something better
I thought we were
to
trying
replace
to,
it.
win
Not worse.
game mode award. Never mind, my bad.
So Garner showed me Karnov Down's rules when I drove up to Rochester for our game, and I think Garner could tell across the table that my brain was breaking a little bit.
So, can you just explain briefly what the gist of Karnov Down is to people who aren't familiar?
The gist of Karnov Down is there's 2 objectives that stay on the board, surrounded by 2 or 3 more objectives that you can pick up, and you have to walk them off the back of your board. Then, afterwards, at the end of the game, you get points based on how many you have control of, how many you've walked off the board with, if you control the downed Karnovs, which are the permanent objectives. And then, to top it all off, at the end you roll a d6. And one of those objectives that you have is secretly worth 4 times as much.
Oh, I was like, okay, I was on board until it was, there's a coin flip at the end to decide which objective is actually worth points. But I was like, okay.
It ends up which player wins.
Yeah, capture the flag with some take and hold on the side. That sounds pretty fun. And then you just get to the end and it's like, what? Okay.
And I've heard of multiple different forms of this where sometimes holding the objectives is worth more, sometimes taking the people off the board is worth more. It's not always accurately described or thoroughly listed out in the scenario details or in secondary objectives that can make it extra confusing. Oh, secondary objectives. Would we want to add secondary objectives as part of a tournament?
No.
I guess what are you thinking of as secondary objectives? Like, I feel like that might be something for narrative play, perhaps, especially if it's going to be something that's more random. But I guess
we don't need to add more complexity to our missions that are already more complex than here's 4 to 6 points or 2 to 6 points. Hold them, but also other things happen while you're holding them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you would want to bring, so my understanding, and this is just from kind of hanging around a lot of 40k players, because the current version of Warhammer uses secondary objectives, is kind of the point of the secondary objective.
Random secondary objectives. Got to be clear about
Okay, but the point of a secondary objective, as I can understand it, is basically this is a point sync that you know your army is relatively good at performing. So even if you are losing on primary because your opponent has just outplayed you in list building on primary, or something tragic has happened and they're just outplaying you on the field in primary, this is a way of basically triaging the loss. And I think I can maybe see a justification for that if we came up with you have like a secondary agenda, because this is the way Kill Team works currently, is you have a secondary objective which is kind of randomly selected, but you get some control over how it's randomly selected, that your force is trying to achieve at the same time that they can get points for. I think maybe that could be an interesting one, because that is basically what killing units is in the current format, is if you kill a certain battle value of units, you get for the Iliad Invitational, instead of that turning into margin of victory and basically being a tiebreaker, that was 20 of your 100 points is based on how much of your opponent you kill. So maybe we replace that if we want to add that, but I also think that is kind of what bringing multiple lists does for you, in that you are able to kind of tailor the way that you are playing each scenario. So I think the way we have it set up, it's unnecessary. I think if we did a one list take all comers, I think introducing secondary objectives as a way of giving players control over some of the points they're allowed to get would be an interesting way of balancing that.
I think there's probably too many pitfalls with adding more than necessarily gains that you look to get from it.
Yeah.
Especially since like your objectives are pretty well thought through, and usually are engaging your entire force in trying to play that objective already.
The one place I can see it being a thing is if you decided to do one list 10k or one list 8k, then you introduce the secondary objective. But as is, if you are just doing like 7,000 points with some variable deployments, it's not a needed part, and it's just going to distract from your primary too much.
I also think you need to look at going to 4 map sheets at that point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was on my mind of something to bring up of, 2 map sheets, 3 map sheets, 4 map sheets.
I think that for 7K, any bigger, you're just throwing primary objectives out the window. You literally...
Yeah. I mean...
Really? So BTCC is on 4 map sheets with 7k objective based.
And that explains why you had 10 units on the board in your first.
No, it's 6 unit maximum.
I'd have to really look at how they structure their... Because I remember reading BTCC and really not liking it. I'd have to look again to have a full comprehension, because I'm just trying to think of the way the game would function with our scenarios on 4 maps, and it would essentially really increase sort of like the gains and risk rewards for various list types, where there'd be so much space in different scenarios that like you really need fast units, or all of a sudden long range killy effects become a lot more impactful on 4 maps. It's like I'm not at 7,000 4 maps. I don't like. It would require a lot of thought and reworking for the scenarios we have.
So with supply rate in specific, since it's long deployment, going to 4 map sheets would extend the distance between the friendly and enemy supplies.
You know what? You're right.
The main thing that it does in supply rate is it disconnects the attackers and the defenders, so you can't have your defenders are basically only working with defending points. They're not providing fire support for your attackers, and your attackers can't as easily fall back to your defenders.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess supply rate is a concern, but what about demolition?
So demolition is going to become much wider between your primary bunkers, right? So it will. So the issue I think with demolition right now is that you can centralize units and sway between either one. Nicholas, you kind of saw me do that in the Invitational for the 3rd match, right? Where I spread out my units a bit, but I saw which bunker that my opponent was going to go for, and then I taught the noose onto the bunker he was going for first, right?
I think the bigger issue there was just your opponent pulled the trigger on that move way too early.
He murked it.
Yikers.
I phrase it as like he psyched himself out and he could have performed a lot better. We just waited 1 or 2 more turns, because that spider definitely could have put a lot more pressure on you if you had moved forward at all. But all of your units were still on your map, and oi.
Yeah, or I kind of had the same thing happen where I was playing Forest in the last mission, and he had his Night Star and his Gargoyle, and he just parked each on a bunker. And they can overlap fire because they both have primary weapons which reach out to 7 hexes for their short range. So they can just kind of... It's the big thing that doing a 4-map deployment... So there's a gameplay change and there's also a physical change. The gameplay change is basically you either need to weaken your defenses and offenses, or you need to kind of centralize them around single objectives instead of overlapping between multiple objectives. This is true in basically every format, every mission except for King of the Hill, because again, central objective. And then the other kind of physical concern that I would have here is 2 map sheets works on most standard size card tables and folding tables. 4 map sheets, you either need 2 tables or you need a dedicated larger gaming table, is the kind of big change. And that's, I think, part of the reason why we haven't done that for Iliad, is it's just kind of annoying to need 2 different playing tables to make a full game on 4 map sheets.
So the good news is for Crossroads, we do put large cardboard.
Oh yeah, you guys will have like
toppers down.
Yeah, like 4x6 maps or whatever, because it plays on a larger board.
Yeah, easy for tournaments, not easy for a lot of other plays. And the more I think about it, my hesitation on 4 maps might have been more preemptive. And it's like, oh, it's much more space, but also it means those faster units, the actual gameplay impact of not making the most optimal move possible is significantly lessened, so you don't have the same decision paralysis of movement, right? Because like on 2 map sheets, the difference between 1 or 2 hexes sometimes can be life or death of partial cover from certain angles or not. But on 4 maps, there's a bit more leeway. You're playing in long range a lot. The high TMM suddenly becomes a lot harder, to deal with, and the risk reward for certain, like I could see it working.
I think it would work just fine. My personal bias of how I enjoy playing, it would open up my play a lot. So there is that in there. But people who like playing bigger, slower forces are going to struggle because of the increase in distance between objectives. Like I think it actually would make demolition a lot healthier, because spreading your friendly bunkers apart so they don't have overlapping fire from their defenders,
harder
and
to
just
turtle.
making the entire part of their side of the map a kill box. Basically, you now can try and do feints and things like that, and bring your opponent to react to go to one bunker, and then use your better speed to go for the other. Right there's a lot of different options that then can happen. I think it would work pretty well.
Yeah, and then I think the one other thing I just want to say is we brought up 3 maps briefly. 3 maps I don't think you should ever play on. It either makes the battlefield it will make the battlefield either absurdly wide or absurdly long, in which case whoever brings the longer ranged force is just going to get a very, very long kill corridor on a long deployment. Nicholas and I have run into this issue when we were playing on 3 maps. And for the wide board, it just becomes kind of a pain in the ass, because you can see each other from your deployment. But also your objectives are just super spread out, and there's no way of tiling it to be smaller in a way that makes any amount of sense, because we don't have... If we had a map that was, instead of a 2x2, a 4x1, I might change my mind, but we don't.
Yeah, so I think we've had a lot to think and talk about here in terms of tournaments. I think we seems to be a lot of agreement on some concepts here. Now that we basically have the Rochester BattleTech house here with a nice large table, I definitely think we should get some planned practice games in on some of these things here in the future. And do we have any sort of last thoughts to bring up, final things? Because we are running late and we do want to get into some games played.
I'm good.
I think I've done enough derails for this point.
I just wasn't quite agreeing with the 4 map sheets, but I didn't want to prolong that anymore. So I just kind of tuned it out.
It's just definitely one of the things, like, I was hesitant. I'm less hesitant. I still would want to see it and play it out, but that can happen in the future. So, moving on to games played. Garner, if you want to go first.
I guess for my games played, so like we said, at the Invitational, we played the Supply Raid, then King of the Hill, then Demolition. And I ended up going 1 and 2, where my first round was, like usual against this player, he got the crits, and I did not. He did some good plays. We both found both of each other's bombs like in the first 2 turns. It was kind of crazy. It's not like we were in like weird places with them, so.
Did you find them with active probes, or did you find them by face-necking the explosion?
I landed a helicopter on one.
Rip.
Which would have been fine if he didn't roll 2 rotor hits. Because I could have used a reroll to make it not hit a rotor and then not kill me because the Nightshade has a surprising amount of armor. But yeah. And then the other one, the Koshi scanned the bomb that it is. Oh, that's another thing that we have to talk about. That's something that we need to modify in our rules. Is to clearly state that you can only scan one objective.
Already done. In the 2025 rules, it specified any. Like, I was looking back at this, it did specify any. So it was, you could scan multiple. It was kind of explicit in that in the active probe rules section. I have switched it to target. You can target a hex and scan it. Now, I'm specifically doing that because it was pointed out to me just how freaking long range Bloodhound and other advanced active probes are, and it becomes silly. So once you hit super probe scanning half the map, it doesn't. You have to target a single hex because you don't want to scan the entire line of depots all at once.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even clan active probe is 5 hexes.
Yeah,
right?
and then light active probe is 3. But like a regular active probe, you can effectively stand somewhere and scan 2. With a Bloodhound, you could stand on one objective and scan the ones on each side, or stand in between and get like 4. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I was fine with people scanning 2. It's still 7 up on each one. You roll individually, but scanning 3 or more, we were scanning half of the depots. It's like that. I was like, that was pointed out to me. He's like, yeah, it's got to change. It's a single one. You target the hex and you roll 7+. So that's the 2026 rules.
It does strengthen bringing ECM though, because ECM would block that.
Hey, it's just cool that probes do something.
It strengthens ECM, but also, if the Bloodhound, you probably have a second target as long as you aren't in the ECM bubble itself that you can try and peep at.
Yeah.
So what's the range on is it 8 hexes?
Yep, 8 hexes. It's kind of crazy.
It gets even crazier when you get to Alpha Strike and it's 13 hexes for some reason. Not sure why. Not sure why in Alpha Strike it's 13 hexes, but it is 13 hexes.
I like how they decided it wasn't going to be medium range; it was just going to be a little bit longer. But yeah, it's basically your scan circumference is 17 hexes, so that's an entire map sheet basically that you can look at once.
I mean, for a dedicated piece of scanning equipment, like, this is kind of getting off topic, but I feel like active probes are usually too short a range anyway to really be useful. Because by the time you scan something, you're in the ambush.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. My Koshi has done work with his hard-pointed active probe.
I'm talking about like for their intended use of finding hidden units.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially considering I'm pretty sure the scan goes off when you end your movement.
Yep.
Which means typically what happens is you get point-blank shot, and then the active probe helpfully tells you where the second shot is coming from when you're already on the ground.
Active probes are just another victim of BattleTech's problems with scale and distance.
Out of all 3 of those games, I'm not really sure which one I want to talk about. The first one, there wasn't really much to say. I did not lose a 100-tonner in any one of the 3 games. I guess I will say that in King of the Hill, I initially wasn't going to bring the double 100-tonners, and I was actually going to have it be the Dire Wolf. Because my list for the Invitational was an Arctic, or not an Arctic Cheetah, oh my god, an Iron Cheetah A. An Arctic Cheetah A is nowhere near as scary. Big difference in cheetahs.
Big difference in cheetahs.
But anyways, Iron Cheetah A, that was a 3/4. Then I had the Direwolf E, that was a 4/4. A 4-3, I believe. Nightshade non-ECM VTOL. And then I had then that was like my first two kind of like detachments. And then my last one was a Mistlynx I. So 5 SRM2s and a NARC. That was a 3-4. A unit of Space Flamer Elementals because I just could not find the BV. I would be up by a single BV. I'd be at 7,001 if I brought regular Elementals in configurations to make them useful. And then my final unit was an Ebon Jaguar C, I want to say it was. Charlie, the one that's the missile boat, where it's got 2 LRM-15s, 2 SRM-2s, and 2 Ultra AC-2s. Or SRM-6s.
The SRM-2s or SRM-6s?
SRM-6s. 2 SRM-6s, and it had 1 ton of Inferno ammo, but it was just on the off chance it needed to. The SRMs are in flippy arms with the Ultra autocannon 2s, and it did work in the 2 games that I played with it. So that was originally what I was going to do. I was actually going to do everything but the Iron Cheetah in King of the Hill, but my opponent was so adamant that's what I was bringing, and I had to bring it. It's like, man, that's such a mean, brutal list. I'm like, except it dies to, headshots or attacks pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. Dies to headshot, dies to tack. Gets out-tunned by a lot of lists.
Yep, I was out-tunned.
Let's
out-tunned.
Be real here.
And so anyway, so turn 1, I flew on. So I ended up playing that list, even though I would have much rather just left the Iron Cheetah at home. I'm glad I didn't, though, because good God, that thing did work. So 2 large pulses, UAC 20, 2 Streak 6s, and 6 machine guns. On an alpha, it's 96 damage. Turn 1, I flew the VTOL up and got the VTOL onto the point and got a quick turn 1 point. And then just ran both the 100-tonners up. My opponent shot at the landed VTOL in the hill through some woods and stuff at long range, so it just kind of laughed. The next turn, nobody had the hill turn 2. And then he outtunned me 230 to 200. But for the entirety of the game, he ignored the Iron Cheetah and just brawled with the Direwolf while the Iron Cheetah just ran around, did its brawl thing, because that's what it does. It brawls. And he had a bunch of long range. He had 2 tanks that had UAC 10s. He had a double, I believe it was ERPPC, Warhammer 2C. It was the one with I think it's 2 ERPPCs and 2 ATM 6s. And he tried to brawl with me on the hill instead of picking me apart for a little bit before coming to brawl.
In fairness, I think with that list, you kind of do need to just pick one of the between the Daishi and the Iron Cheetah and just say, this is the thing I'm going to kill.
Oh, I agree. Oh yeah, I didn't say that he needed to split the attention. I'm just saying that I think he should have dealt with the more heat neutral targeted focus damage with crit seekers.
Yeah, fair enough.
If he's going to brawl with me, he needs to kill the brawler. If he's going to range poke me, then I could understand fighting the Direwolf.
Well, the Direwolf E is also a hell of a brawling powerhouse. That thing kills anything.
Correct,
with 4 hexes.
But it loses a lot of firepower once it gets warm. And once you start getting engine crits, I got 2 engine crits. I lost a torso on him.
Well, I mean, yeah, but at that point, it's tanks so much fire, right? If that was the Iron Cheetah instead, then the Direwolf E would just be firing 7 medium pulse, 2 LB10s, and a streak LRM10 every turn, and going up down 2 heat basically. Sure,
but I don't know. There's a lot more ammo stuff going on. Anyways, I think that if you're going to brawl with me, you kill the brawler first. That direct punches the holes, because it has big focus damage, which is what is really scary in brawling. Spread damage is useful.
Yeah, I guess
only really unless it's you or Murph, where you Magic BB the head or Magic BB the double engine crit. Generally, I find in brawling that getting the big old knockout punch to start clearing armor is just way more valuable.
Yeah, the Ultra AC 20 is very, very threatening. And the Daishi is also, like, it's 8 medium pulse lasers is 8 medium pulse lasers, and that is kind of a petrifying amount of gun. But if you are putting assault mechs onto the point as well, that Ultra 20 has a very real chance of crippling you with one salvo.
And, like, I lost my first game to Murph from... He just had 2 LBX-20s, and he headshot 2 of my mechs with them, which a medium pulse laser cannot do. It came down to I needed to kill 2 of his units, because it ended up being... He had 3 points to my 1 by turn 4 or 5, whatever it was. And it came down to, if he killed the direwolf, I had to kill 2 of his units to still out-ton him. He ended up failing to kill the direwolf because I had stripped both ERPPCs and one of the ATMs off of the Warhammer 2C. And basically what I did is I crippled, I think it was an Enfield? Or no, it was an Enforcer. I crippled the Enforcer turn 1, like just stripped it so it was just paper. And then after it was paper, I ended up just ignored it because I didn't care because he was just running around trying to protect. And I was like, I'll just shoot at the Warhammer. Shot the Warhammer. Stripped that to almost nothing. And then in that one turn where I had to kill 2 mechs, the Direwolf E didn't lose its torso yet, but just kind of looked over, sent one arm at one mech, one arm at the other mech. Then the Iron Cheetah just drilled a hole through what remained of the Warhammer 2C. Then I outgunned him for the rest of the game, and kept trying to kill the Direwolf, and it just needed a little bit more, and just couldn't. I think I still have the paper doll of it. It should not have been alive. And yeah, that's really what happened with that game. I think that I think it would have served him better to plink at me with his longer range shots for a while, and it probably would have served him a little bit better.
There's a lot of examples throughout the tournament of people sort of psyching themselves out and not performing as well as they should. I know Murph, is saying he was too busy looking over at Zess's homework, trying to take a page out of that book to realize he had perfectly good pages he could have used. And Nate was just having a rough day. He was not in a good headspace by the end of it.
Yeah, I can go over some of my matches. I have some quickies.
We have an overlap there because we faced each other as well.
Yeah, so. I have thoughts about that match. But also,
yeah, we fucked up.
We fucked up, but also
I fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, I was okay. So my list explained briefly. I brought the other Warhammer 2C of the tournament. It was the standard. The standard Warhammer 2C is really good. Standard engine, lots of armor. It's an assault mech that goes 4/6 with 2 ER PPCs and then a bunch of ER medium pulse lasers and then SRM that I can fire sometimes. I also brought a Stormcrow C, which was kind of there as like a kind of a fast cavalry harasser. A Locust 2C, which was there to go and cut down enemy heavies when I needed extra fast. A crossbow, I don't remember which variant it was. It's the one with the ATM 6s, which I was using as kind of a fast elemental carrier. And then a Phantom E, which has an ATM and a bunch of micro pulse lasers. I also brought along a new toy for me that I haven't tried before, which is the Rabid Medium Battle Armor, which I honestly like more than the Elementals now that I've played with it a little bit. It has a little bit less armor. It's 9 points of armor and then 1 point of Elemental per battle suit. But it has 2 one-shot SRM 6s and a flamer instead of... 2 one-shot SRM 2s and a flamer instead of a 2 reload SRM 2 and a flamer. And it jumps 4. So it's a really nice harassment piece. It can flush a lot of scary damage at people very quickly and then immediately go into doing leg attack and anti-mech stuff. they performed pretty well in my first game. This was the supply raid mission, as just kind of hopping around between objectives, threatening to kind of contest points against battle mechs as they came in. That match, I was fighting Isaac, Garner's round 2 opponent, and I think it was a pretty decent game. Isaac had some bad luck in choosing one of my bomb locations, which kind of strick one of his light scout mechs pretty quickly, and he played pretty passively with his VTOL, so it didn't really manage to do a whole lot because the configuration of the Stormcrow I had an AC-10 on it, which he was concerned about the flak off of, so it never really got good shots into the back of any of my expensive mechs. The other game that I played that I wanted to highlight was Into Zess, and we did make a pretty critical rules mistake on this one because we did not realize that infantry have separate rules regarding stacking with mechs.
Or at least enemy mechs. So
I want to pop in here as the judge at the tournament who was called over and asked a question about stacking and enemy units entering hexes. So in standard rules, when a unit enters a hex that it can enter with an enemy unit in, the stacking rules mean that the unit entering the hex with an enemy unit ends its movement there. It cannot move into another hex. That's what the stacking rules state. However, what we didn't realize at the time in the tournament, and I should have looked ahead, this is a problem of, first of all, I could have been a better judge and continued on. I do try to check myself, but also they didn't specify that there was an exception, because further on the opposite column of the page is a specification for infantry that mechs can move through infantry, and battle armor are infantry. So your unit could have moved through the battle armor.
Wait, what?
So
that's not what we were snipping out of the thing, though. It says that you can end your move in it, you can't move through it, but then the next turn you may leave that hex. We had a talk, there was a whole talk with
oh boy,
Wild Bill in the Discord about it, where we were snipping things and putting it into.
No. Let me pull it up.
So I am just gonna say right now, Zess, if you were feeling bad about that, it would not have changed the outcome because you outtunned me to a point that I would have surrendered the objective to you anyway.
yeah, that's fair. But I mean, still, I was heavily limiting your options with. I guess we should probably go over my list before we.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about our match.
While Nicholas is finding that, yeah, if you want to go over what you brought.
So my list was some Snow Ravens I brought because I wanted to play Snow Ravens before the meat and potatoes of this list.
Hold on, here it is. If the enemy units located in the hex are only infantry, a mech may exit that hex in the same turn it entered. If the enemy units are any other units, the mech must stop in the hex as noted above.
Oh, that is so clunky.
And the ironic part is I snipped and put it in there.
That is so clunky, but anyway, continues us.
Yeah, that's why having caveats to core rules should be in the same spot, not... Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I brought some Snow Ravens that I brought because I wanted to play some units before they were summarily, probably permanently banned from Iliad. So, the first thing, the core of the list is a Blood Asp F, which is essentially a better Timberwolf D, which the Timberwolf D is my favorite one, even though it's heavily flawed. But the Star Rider, or Blood Asp F, is a 4.6, 90-ton assault with 2 PPCs, plasma cannon, 2 medium pulse lasers, 4 Streak SRM-6s facing forward, not 2 of them facing backwards, like a certain flawed Timberwolf, and 2 anti-personnel Gauss rifles. And it's got pretty good heat sinking too, because it has 38 dissipation on 63 generation, but the way that the bracketing works out is it can pretty comfortably fire either a long range complement or a short range complement of its salvo, and it brackets very well, while having a good threat at long range and a very powerful threat at short range. The complementary mech that I brought, was a Vulture Mark III D, which I mainly brought because I wanted to use some Clan Rotary 5s, and it has 2 clan rotary AC5s with 2 medium pulse lasers. And then I also had a Parash. So the Parash is a 35-ton kind of ripoff of the Pack Hunter, more or less, while also probably being better at the same time. So it is a 7.11.7 35-ton jumper with a large pulse laser, tag, ECM, and active probe. So this was meant to kind of fulfill a lot of the E-War capabilities I might need in the tournament, while also being a very strong light mech.
That is so much equipment on top of just having like a great main gun. Jeez.
Yep. And then one of the most optimized movement profiles. So, and as well armored too. So it's got 10 points in the side torso, 16 points in the CT. So it can take a hit. Like a single Gauss rifle or ERPPC hit is not going to kill it, which is an issue that I think the base Pack Hunter does have. Supporting that is a very, very disgusting Firemoth P, which is a Firemoth with 12 micropulse lasers, a supercharger, and mask, so it's able to go up to 25 hexes if you enable both. It is pretty mean overall.
The Firemoth P sees a lot of use.
Yes, I've never used one before. This was kind of, I needed something in the budget around that cost and capabilities, and I'm like, you know what? I'm already going pretty disgusting. I'm going to use it.
It's so cheap. It's so good at throwing hammers at people.
It's so good. And plus, for objective play, it's also good at running down. Ironically, this is the mech I fear the most when I'm running skimmers, because it is the best skimmer hunter in the game. The last mech I have on the list, so the 5th mech, is a Koshi. So this is actually a Koshi. It's not a Mislinks, but a Koshi, so the standard 3. It's a 7.11.6 movement, 25-ton mech that has a supercharger, so it can go up to 14. Mask, not supercharger. This specific one has 6 heavy small lasers on a targeting computer, ECM, and an active probe. So again, it's another E-War platform for me to use. I only used it in I used it in two matchups. So
yeah, it's a weird little goober, and the armor. I'm a little leery about the armor profile, but also I think it's cheap enough and it's fast enough that for the most part, what you're using it for, you don't really care about.
Does it have the same armor profile as a Omni Mislinks?
Identical armor profile. Yeah, 5 leg armor is rough.
It is.
Yeah. Somehow
that's what happens with mine too.
But we'll get to that.
I mean, that's a case of it's more threatening. Like, there's more threatening things because you also downskilled the pilot, right?
Yeah, it's a 4/6.
Yeah, so it's that's at that point you're looking at that's just over 1/10 of your list. You have so many more threatening things to be shooting at than the Koshi.
So supporting that was 4 units of battle armor. I brought 2 squads of Sylph and 2 squads of Ares. So Sylphs I wanted to bring because they are one of my favorite BA. They're probably my second favorite type of BA. They are going to be summarily banned from Iliad due to being VTOL type movement. So this was the last kind of chance to use them before I would never get to use them. And so I'm like, fuck it, we're doing Ravens. Ares are a PAL suit that is super fragile. They have 1 armor and 1 structure apiece, so 10 damage kills the squad, essentially. But they are very inexpensive, and we're able to upgrade them to being a 2/3 quite easily while still being very, very budget. So
also of note with the Ares suits, that's 10 damage, but in 1 point hits need to kill it.
Or 2 points at least.
Yeah.
But one streak SRM, 6, but 5 damage would do it. 5 SRMs will kill the squad.
Yeah.
So, of which yours never connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they've also got standard stealth armor, which makes them quite annoying to hit.
Yep, especially on a jump 3 platform.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they're very cheap. It's often not worth your while to shoot them, like we were kind of going with the Koshi, right? The Ares are even more so. If there's other things to shoot at, do you want to waste the time doing it? Like, you would only really do it with secondary targets, which is what you were also doing. But that drives the number even higher. So.
Oh no, I was mostly firing primary at them.
Oh, all right. But then it's reducing the fire against other targets, right? So like either way, it's creating an issue. It's worth that points for that. The last unit on my list was a Karnov UR Transport BA Stealth. This was here to be another ECM, so that way if I ran against the C3 list, given that the final season of 2025 Iliad had so many C3 lists in it, what me also being guilty of doing so, I wanted to make sure that I had plentiful ECM.
Let's put it this way: you and your partner in crime there had 80% of the C3. Not by BV, even. That's just by networks.
Oh, well, because we were running split networks.
Yeah.
So, okay.
You guys have been, that's part of why there's 2026. You're limited to one network.
I still think the way that you solve that problem is you just tie string around all the bases and then you just move them around.
Well, I tried to make it also.
Is it worse to require people to bring string or to limit people down to one C3?
No, I think you should need people to bring string. I think
you
that's
gotta
funny.
use the like bottle rings, like when you twist off the bottle top and it leaves a little ring there. That's what I saw a lot of people using for stuff.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
so you can okay.
So you hang like a Gatorade one on one, you hang a Mountain Dew one on the other.
I don't think it was too hard to tell which network was which, because I used a height 1 VTOL as like it wasn't on the flight stand as the tank's spotter, and then there was a VTOL that was on a flight stand, so sitting at like level 2, which was tied into the mech. And so I was just told them like, hey, the tall one is with the mech, the short one's with the tanks. I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, but then you're trying to worry about breaking two different networks. Like it's just it adds a lot of mental load for your opponent when you've got multiple. Yeah, that
was the idea.
Abusing your opponent
the
is
game
not
becomes
a great.
Listen, yeah, it's you know the It's Always Sunny episode where it's Charlie in the mailroom trying to figure out who Pepe Sylvia is. You don't want to do that to your opponent, preferably. However, it is very funny when it happens.
And you guys, it's just proof that current rules, small C3 works.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people had a lot of issues fighting into them. I mean, because the two lists running 2 micronets, right, went first and second, so...
Yeah, Scout,
But anyway.
Scout Sniper C3 is really good right now.
Yeah, I mean, so they do need to change it so that C3 needs line of sight from the spotter to the target. I hate the fact that I can see through a mountain and target the opponent, but that's just me. But I wanted to be...
Why don't you just place an Alpha Strike?
No.
Or, I mean, I think they change it in the new rules, but they also dramatically make it more expensive for small deployments.
Oh, it's down to 20% per. Now.
That's less ominous, but still...
You could just get the gunnery upgrade at that point and get the same effect, right? Like, is kind of what it comes down to. So that Karnov was not a sprint. It was a Karnov in this list, and it was just there to possibly transport the Ares if they needed it over to the other side of the field. I mean, they've jumped 3, but being able to forward deploy them is also good. Didn't really plan on forward deploying the Sylphs, but was forced to in game 2, more or less. And it was also just there to capture objectives and be a menace with blocking and stuff like that. So as a cheap little thing. So yeah, that was the force.
Yeah.
And then we're sort of going back to talk game 2 then.
Yeah. So I can take point on at least my point of view of this. So yeah, we did. So this was King of the Hill. I had slightly fast. I could get onto the point with slightly more stuff, slightly faster than Zest. So I kept the point for the first 2 turns. I think I made a pretty serious mistake in that. So I brought my Phantom, my Warhammer, my crossbow, and my battle armor for this, and I had like a really bad, it was either turn 2 or 3 where I blundered my Phantom, and then I also blundered one of my sets of rabbit armor at the same time, and that kind of lost me the game there. And from that point on, I was basically playing triage. So
right, because the Phantom
Yeah.
Take a bait that I left.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gone after your mechs. I should have gone after your battle armor with the Phantom. And I chose to try and get greedy and go after the Vulture when I should have been just cutting down Sylphs and Ares, because that thing has 8 micropulse lasers, and that's really, really good at killing off Sylphs because they have 6 total health per suit, and it's really good at killing off Ares efficiently because they have 2 total armor per suit. It should have just been doing donuts and running after your battle armor. So I did that. I also moved my Rabbids too early so you could kill off the Rabbids with the cluster bombs, because Sylphs do 10 damage to the hex they're in when they drop their cluster bomb, and that just kills 10 armor or 10 health battle armor really, really efficiently, because battle armor takes takes area damage to every suit in the thing. And from there, it was basically I let you have the point. And we did have the kind of rules mistake of, like, you were using battle armor to do move blocking, which isn't technically something you should be able to do, but also I don't think it would have changed the outcome of the match in any way, because from that point on, you didn't really kill anything extra that I had in my list, and I didn't have the tons to out-ton you at that point because my Phantom was on the ground with only 1 leg off the point. So I would have just surrendered the point to you at that point and then tried to chip down your units for margin of victory. Which is exactly what I did anyway.
Yeah, because even if you were able to move around the point, the entire hill was under threat from any point in the hill was under threat from at least 2 suits, right, for being swarmed. So
yeah, so I would have backed off anyway, but it was just a question of, like, it reduced my kind of ability to move on the hill. But yeah, I mean, otherwise I think it was a good game. Like I said, I think I had a really bad turn 2, and that kind of lost me the game, and from there it was basically just me playing triage and not getting terribly lucky. But I managed to basically deny you additional MOV from that point on, and I don't know, I came out with, I think, like a little under 50 points, which I was, and I denied you getting a full 100, so I'll consider that a decent fighting retreat.
Because I think you got 48, right? Because you had two turns of the hill, and I think you got second stage of attrition, right?
Yep.
So.
That's something that I've noticed. A lot of people that, like, there's a decent amount of people that don't play for the points. They're like, oh, the game's lost, nothing matters anymore, but it really does. And in this event, it came down to people. There was 2 people that went 2-1 with the exact same battle points. So it had to go to strength of schedule after that. Whereas if points mattered, like if people got it literally did come down to points and not just win-loss.
Yeah, and I mean that was kind of my thing, is I was like, well, I could just stay on the point and lose like a buster, but if I do that, Zess 100 owes me, and I don't want that to happen. So we surrender the objective, and then we prevent him from getting additional margin of victory where we can, while trying to chew down one of his mechs to crippled, so I can count it at least second stage of MOV.
Yeah, I remember you guys playing each other, and I often think about how it feels to play certain people. Like, Luke, when I play you, and I got the same feeling with Zess, it's like, you walk into a game of BattleTech, and it's like, oh, giant mechs, this is fun. At a certain point with other players, your brain clicks, and you're just like, yeah, we're playing this game. This is competition mode. It turns more into like a chess match than a sort of relaxing experience. And I remember looking over and seeing you too, and it's like, yep, they're in BattleTech chess mode. They're like thinking about planning moves in advance, expectations, laying bait, laying traps, and it's a feeling you get sometimes against certain people, and like watching it happen on both of your faces was fascinating.
I mean, And maybe you can speak on this too, Zest, but my kind of general theory of BattleTech is what are the win conditions and what is kind of the expected value of a move. So I will typically take, and admittedly I didn't in our match and it kind of lost me the game, take a I will typically take the move which will get me the most points, and followed that I will take the move which will give me kind of the average closest odds towards victory if I can see it, as kind of my way forward in a game. Because like killing stuff is fun, but at the end of the day, like, and this is kind of the theory of the list of 2 big things and then a bunch of skimmers and battle armor. Like, the way you win most games of BattleTech if objectives are on field is you go for objectives.
Yeah, I mean, because it also depends on how they're weighting the scores, right? Like, is it 80-20? Is it 60-40%, right? Objective versus kill.
Mm-hmm.
So that can change a little bit of the decision making, but I mean, if you're playing objective-based BattleTech, you have to play the objective.
Yeah, and I...
PTFO, right? Or PTFO.
Yes. And yeah, I failed to do that in like the second turn of the game, and from there it was basically just I had to triage the situation and make sure like I didn't want to play the like kind of clock game and just try and make it so you couldn't get like a 4th turn on the hill, because that's just rude. But like from there on it was basically, okay, he's gonna get 80 points, I need to make sure he doesn't get more than he already has. Unless I'm also kind of marking up in points at the same time. And like, I think that's an important kind of player psychology thing if you're losing a game, is if you know you're in a losing position, you need to abandon winning the game as your kind of success condition that you're working towards, and you need to find a new achievable success condition. And that's how you can make even bad, like, games where you do bad fun. And this is, like, we've talked about, we had some players who were at the Invitational who got into kind of fatalistic points, and I think this is kind of my advice always in these games, is if you realize you're in kind of a, like, unsolvable without a miracle losing position, then the way that you keep yourself in a good headspace for your next game is you need to change what your win condition for that game is personally. And that can be playing for a draw and denying your opponent points somewhere, or it can be trying to kind of triage the loss such that you're still at least putting some points on the board, even if your opponent is going to like blow out and get close to 100. Like, you need to do something, because otherwise you are going to be a wreck, and you are going to wreck your psychology going forward.
And in an event or a tournament that is points based, obviously with 3 rounds there's a little bit less of a leeway, but there are circumstances where you can lose to someone and then beat them overall in placement afterwards based off of scores, because you can come back, and it's harder to come back if you let them have a blowout. So every point can count, particularly, Zest, you're talking about your event would be 5 rounds. So if you lose to somebody round 2, but you stop them from getting a blowback, you can turn around and beat them in overall placement.
Especially if you're doing...
and maybe place yourself second.
Yeah. Especially if you're doing Swiss scoring, an early loss can put you in a position where you are going to have a much weaker schedule for the rest of the tournament, which means that your following games may be much more winnable.
Are you recommending submarining?
I'm not recommending submarining. I'm just
Again?
saying that is what we're talking about here. Submarining in this case being throwing in early games so you have a weaker schedule going forward that you can just kind of beat less skilled players. And that's not...
The irony, though, when all the players submarine into the bottom of the bracket is the strongest players.
And like, even if you're not diving...
I think
intentionally...
I was going to say, I think I mentioned submarining when I was like, oh yeah, thanks for letting me submarine.
You did 100%.
Yes. And even if it's not intentional, like, if you get an early loss, it's like... I think, again, like an important part of, I don't know if did any of you guys do high school or collegiate sports, but this was kind of an important part of, I did competitive swimming for several years, and an important part of this is of my kind of meet and match psychology was you never, ever, ever think about the points for the whole team when you're doing a swim meet. It doesn't matter. You don't think about what your previous scores were. That doesn't matter. The next match is always what's important. And even if you can't beat the strongest seed in the match, you need to come up with a personal goal, because otherwise you are just going to wreck yourself. So part of this is me just trying to say, like, maybe don't submarine to, like, win the match, but if you do lose your first round, then think of it as you can take that as my next opponent is going to be less skilled. I still have this. I can still get at least one win on the board. Maintaining that player psychology into your following matches is, I think, for a tournament, a really, really important part of playing in a way that's healthy and that doesn't leave you kind of frustrated and burnt out of the game at the end of the weekend.
All right, we are running a little long here. I want to cover my one game from yesterday, a little fun experience briefly, and go and move to closing thoughts. So, locally here in Rochester, which I've recently moved to, and I'm enjoying the experience again, there is the Solaris arena competition local thing just started up again. I caught one game as a guest last year. This is my first time participating it fully as a participant, and I ended up in sort of like a free-for-all 5-way match with one of my 3 random mechs. I chose a grasshopper. Apparently a lot of people chose grasshoppers, and I'm actually not that surprised because they're just solid chunks of beef.
Hopper's a good mech.
Yep.
My other 2 were a Menshen. I forget which one specifically, but it's got double snub-nose PPCs and a targeting computer.
It's the OF.
The good one.
And my last mech is an Iluka. I wanted to pick, the Menshen is an optimized little garbage guy. I chose the grasshopper. It's just a PPC and a bunch of medium lasers. It's a straightforward, not complicated brick of armor with some guns as something sort of not fancy, and the Iluka as the weird fancy thing that is both scary and stupid at the same time. Now, it has stealth armor, which doesn't function because certain equipment you can bring but doesn't actually work, like ECM and stealth armor. In the arena, ranges are doubled, so the snub has a short range of 18, so basically anything on the map. It is a 5.87, so it can jump where it wants. It's got a snub, an ER large, and 2 ER mediums, and so I was jumping around and shooting things. Granted, my dice sucked, so I wasn't actually hitting things very often, even on 7s for short range. The main quirk, despite the fact that at certain parts of the game he was intimidating and scary, is that he's a small cockpit. And other people also had guns at short range, and at certain times I would take 20 damage, or I'd miss a kick and fall over.
Dog, why
try to get up and fall over.
This Iluka?
Try to get up and fall over. I mean, it's 11 damage kick, and so the rules are if you lose a leg, you die and you're out. And so I had an opportunity to just eliminate a grasshopper by kicking it if I hit it in the right leg. I also had a special initiative card that let me kick twice. So I just I can jump here and possibly kill you. But I ended up getting second. Because even if you are missing with your shots jumping around with a jump 7, most people aren't doing that, and so you're often the worst target. And so being the worst target frequently can last you, even if every once in a while you fall over and hit your face twice. So it was this hilarious, it was very enjoyable. People were initially intimidated and scared by it, but the moment the small cockpit stuff started to happen, which is kind of intentional, I'm trying to be good-natured by it, because I could, in theory, be a little derpy weirdo and jump and stay out of range of everybody and just try to hit them with my snub at ER the whole game. But that's not fun. The fun is when I run in and alpha strike you, go up to 11 heat, and try to kick you with this, and see if I fall over with spell cockpit. And it was a blast, and I got second. So that was my experience. I'm excited for next month.
To see if I can make time to get up for that, because that sounds like a blast, and I have some things I want to run for that.
So, all right, I've got a dog to walk, and we've been running long. So, any closing thoughts about games played, tournaments, or topics today?
Don't forget to put her jacket on. It's rainy in Grosam.
I probably will put her jacket on. Yes.
But I mean, I think there's a lot of things we're going to be talking about in private about tournament stuff, especially as I get further along in the packet for Crossroads. Probably be sending you more information as the packet gets solidified, but it is definitely happening this year. So should be all 3D printed terrain too. So we're kind of focused on trying to make sure the boards all look nice. So it is going to be preset maps, but yeah, there will probably actually be a Hextech sponsorship for the tournament. So there should be prize support is very likely. And also getting more terrain if we need it. So
Pointedly not entering the tournament because I have no space in my apartment and I don't need a bunch of 3D printed terrain.
Usually a lot of stuff's raffles at the end. So.
Luke, Zest, Garner, thank you so much for joining me tonight and having a conversation about tournaments in BattleTech.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Odysseus Legion podcast. This podcast was created by the Odysseus Legion, a BattleTech club organizing play around Central and Western New York State. Rules for all of our formats, as well as a calendar of Odysseus Legion events, can be found on our website, odysseuslegion.com. All music and audio in this recording was licensed through Adobe Stock or open source. All views expressed herein are those of the person expressing them and do not necessarily represent the views of the Odysseus Legion, Catalyst Game Labs, or the Catalyst demo team. It's been a long day. Give my brain the slack.